Hey, how's it going? I'm Luke, the Hard Times guy. You've been watching a series, me telling stories about auctions and auctioneers and featuring the Robinson Auction Service throughout the series. This will be number 4 episode. This will be the last episode of that series, and I'd like to start it by just telling you a little story about my wife. My wife, Betty, some of you know her. She loves me and she worries about me, and she tries to help me by helping me improve on my behavior. And she worries. How she thinks about it is she loves me, and she knows I'm a big old puppy dog and don't mean a lot of the things that my facial expressions say and my actions say, or so she thinks. And so she wants everybody else to love me. And so she's always trying to help me out by pointing things out to me that I might think about to correct some of my behavior. And she's been kind of looking over my shoulder as I made these auction videos, and she's a little bit bothered by some of the things I said and some of the things I do, and so she's been trying to tweak it a little bit and improve it a little bit. This occurred the other day. I went to an auction, and I was all excited when I went to the auction because they had a lot of the kind of stuff that I like to buy at the auction, and I was pretty upbeat about going and thinking, you know, I'd probably get what I wanted at least part of the time. And so I went to the auction, and when I came home, I pulled in the driveway and got out of the truck and went in the house, and there she sat in her chair there by the door, like where she usually is, and she had her phone in her lap. I could tell she'd been looking at her phone, but it was just laying in her lap now. And she said, I can tell you're not happy. I said, you can tell I'm not happy? How can you tell I'm not happy? She said, I heard the truck come in the driveway, and the way you come in the driveway, you're not happy. I said, well, it's news to me. I didn't know I wasn't happy. She said, okay. She said, did you buy anything? And I said, no, I didn't. And that started me on a tirade. I started to go off in the kitchen and get me something out of the refrigerator, but I turned around and come back at her. She had her phone in her hand. What she was doing, I didn't know this, but she was turning her camera on. She was going to get some evidence to help me with later, I guess. And I started telling her about the auction and what happened when I was there. And she's sitting there nodding her head like she does and smiling at me like she does, and I was pacing back and forth there on the floor, not paying attention to what she was doing. But what had happened, we were at the sale, and they went outside to sell some things outside. They had an old tractor out there, and a rake and a harrow, and I think a disc, maybe 2 discs, some stuff like that nobody really wanted, and some other junk. And a lot of the men went out there. There's a lot of people out there in bib overalls, and me, of course, and most of the women stayed inside, and some of the men stayed inside. And I was happy about it because some of my competition stayed inside. Out there amongst this stuff, they had an old meal bin, and man, was that, oh, it was sweet. It has made out of yellow poplar, had square nails in it. The board on the front of it was 26 inches wide. The board on the back of it was 32 inches wide. The top was one board. Oh man, it was sweet. Up on legs, had old blue-green paint on it that had been painted over an old mustard yellow, and some of the yellow was showing through, and had the hinges. They were old handmade hammered hinges, and even the hasp. The hasp was an old handmade. Somebody with right next to it was right next to where the hasp went on was a rat chew. It wasn't a very big one. Just added to the character of the thing. And I really liked it. Well, they got to it, started selling it, and still some of the people I thought might be bidding against me weren't even out there, so I was pretty happy. And the bidding started, and it didn't go too fast, and pretty soon it practically stopped. And I had to bid. I thought, I'm going to get this. I'm going to sell it. There ain't nobody else. They're done. Well, the auctioneer, he started yammering about it wasn't bringing enough money, about how criminal it was to sell it for that price, and doing his thing, and then begging with the crowd to help him out. And he went on like that, seemed like an eternity. Well, something then unusual happened. A Dodge truck was coming down the highway, and people looked up at it because it was making a little noise, and it looked like it was on fire, but it was steam blowing out the back of it. And it slowed down at the auction, and it turned in, and it come in the parking lot, and it come around there to where we were, and it drove right up amongst the crowd, made the crowd separate out of the way. And when he stopped and turned it off, then you could see it wasn't on fire. It started steaming from out from under the hood, and the guy had his elbow up on the window, and he leaned out. The auctioneer stopped, and he said, can I help you, sir? And the guy said, yeah. He said, I hope so. He said, I was headed to, I'm from Ohio, and I was headed to St. Louis. He said, somewhere back up the road, I must have missed a turn, because now I'm lost, not on the highway I'm supposed to be on. He said, my cell phone's dead. And he said, I just blew a radiator hose. He said, I saw all these people out here, and I thought somebody might be able to help me. And the auctioneer, he said, well, you're in luck. He said, we got a lot of good folks here. As soon as I'm done with what we're doing here, he said, somebody will help you. You can get your cell phone charged in there in the office, and get you something to eat at the concession stand. Somebody will help you get this truck, and you'll be on your way again. He said, while you're at it, he said, this is your lucky day, and maybe you can help me. He said, we're selling this meal bin here, and practically giving it away, he said. And I hate to sell it for that price, but he said, you're lucky you drove up here when you did, because I was getting ready to drop the hammer on it. He said, I got $185 on this. Would you give $185.50? You know that man bought my meal bin? That man bought my meal bin. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about another thing that auctioneers need and have, and Robinson got a good following. They've been blessed with a good following, good customers. First thing you're looking at here is, you say, what in the heck's that got to do with anything? Well, that's a barn. And I don't know, it's probably 14 by 12 or 14 by 10, something like that. I bought that at the Robinson auction. Bought it over on Sandpit Road, hired a flatbed hauler to one of them guys with one of them tilt bed trucks to get it and bring it home for me. And there it sits, and it's full of stuff that I probably bought at auction too. But that one there come from a Robinson auction. And it's the first thing I want to show you. Just about anywhere you look at my place, you can see something come from Robinson auction. I'm going to take you in the house. Here we are. We're in the master bathroom. And Betty'd be having a fit. She knew I was putting this in a video, but this is the bathroom. It goes directly off our bedroom. And that little chimney cupboard in the corner is something that I made specifically for that spot that it's in. It's full of her towels, and tins in that are old tins, and I bought them at a auction. I can't say for sure it was a Robinson auction, but the rest of it, the frame around the door and all the rest of it, the shelves, the sides, that's a raised church pew. W-R-A-Y'-S, raised church pew. And you guessed it, I bought those raised church pews at a Robinson auction. I got a story about it. It's called Bedlam in the Back Creek Bridge. Go back in my videos, from probably 40 or 50 videos, and find that one. Bedlam in the Back Creek Bridge, and it'll tell you about the origin of those raised church pews. That's all I'm going to say about that for a few minutes, but just remember that phrase, raised church pews. Next thing I'm going to show you is this, and I stepped out of that bathroom into our bedroom, and we're looking there at a little, what I call plain Jane cupboard, and that again is another Hard Times original, built from raised church pews, yellow poplar boards, and square nails that I salvaged from dismantling raised church pews. Going to leave there now and go out into the rest of the house. The first thing we're going to come across here is that little table. And that little table is my favorite little table of that sort. You know, I call that a one-drawer nightstand. That's what I'd refer to that as. But I've got several of them. I'd venture to say probably if you, between the house and the sojourner room and the barn, you might find 10 or 12, maybe more of those tables, because I like them and use them and buy them and resell them. That one right there is my favorite all-time one that I've owned. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but it didn't come from a Robinson auction. I bought that at the Kinser auction up there by Bad Hollow Lake. I went by there one day and he had two things there that I liked, but I was going somewhere and I couldn't stay. I left a bid on that, and a yellow, mustard yellow blanket chest, and I bought both of them. Wished I still had that blanket chest. I didn't keep it. I sold it to Mitchell Antique Mall, but I've kept that little table because I just like it better than anybody else would. If I put a price on it, I couldn't sell it because I like it. I like that red paint that's on it, and that's the real deal. That's not one of my redos. That is the real deal, old red paint. It's got a little alligator. It's got all the right wear in it. Underneath that red paint is some green paint, and it happens to be that color green that Stephen likes because he likes to sell it. I mean, you can see remnants of it on the top where most of the paint's gone, and you can see a little bit of it around in the red up around where it's wore off. Stephen says, "Look at the paint, look at the paint, look at the color, look at the color." He always says that when he's got something to sell that's that color green. You know what color I'm talking about if you've ever been to any of his auctions. That's the color paint underneath the red on that table. In that same room where that table is, happens to be our dining room. This little cupboard sits there. I bought that. I did buy that one at a Robinson auction, and I paid too much for it actually, but it belonged to my Aunt Colleen, and there's a story about it, and there's another, I think the old paint is gone or something like that's the title of that video. There's a video about that too. I bought that at the Robinson auction. The thing right next to it there, that come from a Gary Terrell auction. Haven't mentioned Gary Terrell yet in these videos. Didn't know I was going to, but there that sits. That thing is 90% solid cherry, and maybe the rest of it's yellow poplar. It's old construction, old square nails. I could tell you more about it, but I'm not going to. I could tell you a lot more about Gary Terrell, but I'm not going to, because I'm just going to make a video, and it'll probably take a series of videos to talk about Gary Terrell. But he's another, among other things that he's an auctioneer, and I bought that at one of his auctions. Now we're looking at a blue step back cupboard, and that too, I bought that door, that little door that you see. I bought it at a Robinson auction, just the door. The rest of it is a raised church pew. It's another thing that it's a Hard Times original, constructed out of raised church pews. And I've got a series of shots, and I'm going to show you them. There we are. We're looking at, you can see the boards of how that thing started, the raised church pew. And you can see these photos are made and arranged in progression that show you how the thing started and what it looked like when I started putting it together, what it looked like before it was painted, and then you see various degrees of paint on it. Notice that door and the about 3 different processes that it took to put paint on that door and make it look like it was on that door forever. But that's another Hard Times original, constructed from a raised church pew. built around the inspiration of it for it was that door that I bought it. That good old hand-pegged door that I bought at a Robinson auction. We'll step out into the family room now. The first thing we're looking at there is that's another, I love those little wall cabinets. That particular one is, I bought the door to that at a Robinson auction. Just the door. The rest of it is made from woodwork that I wrecked out of a house out by where I go to church. I call it the Abner house. Our church bought the property and tore the house down. Before they tore the house down, they let me go in there and salvage whatever I wanted. And so I took all the window facings, door facings, closet doors, took all that stuff down, took it home. I've made several cabinets like that one out of those window facings. Sliding across there, right between it and the next cabinet, is a picture. And that's, what's that guy's name? Waldron. Wayne Waldron's his name. He was an artist from Lawrence County, I think, originally, and then he had a gallery up in Brown County. I love his work, the kind of work that he does. But I like that one. That little boy standing on the porch reminded me of Arkansas. I bought it, and I bought that at the Shady Springs auction barn on a Saturday night. I'd been to a Robinson auction sale that day. In fact, I think I went to a Rob Stalker sale that same day too. And then I ended up that night at the Shady Springs barn, and I bought that Wayne Waldron print there. It's a signed, numbered Wayne Waldron print. I bought it at Shady Springs auction barn. Auctioneer's name was Terry Barnes. He died when he was a relatively young man. He'd been dead a long time. Right next to that, another one of them little wall hanging cabinets, and it's full of good stuff. I bought that door that's on that at a Robinson auction. In fact, I bought 3 doors like that. It was a door off of what's called a lawyer's bookcase, or I don't know, they got another name besides lawyer. Oak stack bookcase, and those doors slid back in above the books that were in there, and then you pulled them out and they came down. There's that kind of door, but I had 3 of them that I'd bought, and I intended to maybe make a bookcase out of them, but I never got around to it. And I used one of them when I built this little cabinet. I built that cabinet for my wife because she had that doll that her Uncle Charlie had brought back from his service in North Korea, and he bought that doll over there somewhere, and he brought it home. I built that cabinet for it, and it's got some other things in it. I see 3 Copenhagen Crocs in there, and there's a story about those too, but I'm not going to tell you that right now. Just going to tell you that's another one of those cabinets made out of Abner House woodwork, and it's got a door on it that I bought at the Robinson auctions. This box, it's full of family pictures. Sits in the family room floor, and I don't know, it's probably been there 20, 25 years. I bought this at a Robinson auction over at the Armory. And it's one of those deals. I paid $57 for it. I liked it a lot. It started at about $20. I jumped in, started bidding on it. Went to 55 pretty quick, and I had the bid, and I looked around. The guy bidding against me was Jack Connor. Those of you know Jack Connor know he's a regular at Robinson auctions, or he was, until his health got bad. But one of his boys, can't remember his name, Greg's the oldest one, this is the second boy. He still goes. He's down there at Stevens auctions all the time. But I haven't seen Jack for a while. Jack used to buy blue and white swirl granite ware. That was his passion. That's the thing if he wanted, he paid up for. He bought stuff like this box too once in a while, but usually, I mean, he wasn't real passionate about it, so he's like me, trying to get a bargain on it. But we'd already went past bargain, and I should have had it for 55, but Roger hammered. Finally, Jack bid 56. I looked over at him. He had a grin on his face that wide. He was just messing with me. At least that was my read. I thought that's what he was doing. I looked at him like, you idiot. And he just grinned bigger. So I said 57. I looked back at him again. He went like that, laughed, and turned around and walked off. So I paid $57 for that box, Robinson Auction Service, at the Armory, probably 25 years ago. what you're looking at there is a walnut cupboard top. It's built into that wall between the corner of the room and the next picture you're going to see, which is it's a big built-in cupboard on that wall, and that cupboard's full of shelves except for behind that upper right door, and that upper right door's got a gun cabinet built into it. I built that all into the wall. Those doors and that cabinet and the doors you're going to see next, which lead from this room into our laundry room, all of that came from a Robinson auction. In fact, they came from not just a Robinson auction, but one of the auctions, and I think it's the same one where I took the pictures of Roger that's in one of these videos, at the Orange County Country Store auction. I bought those doors, all those doors I bought at the Orange County Country Store, and I built them into this house, I don't know, 25, 30, maybe longer than that many years ago. There they are. They started out just pieces of things that I bought at Robinson auction. The next thing's a box, and I bought that at the Gary Terrell auction. And there's also a story about that already on in a video, and I can't remember the name of it, but that box, my aunt bought that box in 1976 or 77 at 1910 G Street. And you guessed it, she bought it at a Robinson auction. One of the first auctions he had that I can remember going to. She bought it, paid $40 for it. In 1998 or 99, she sold her big house on 17th Street and moved into smaller quarters, and she had to have a sale because she had too much stuff. And she sold that box in that sale, and it was a cancer auction. That box brought over $600. There's a video about that too. I'm not going to go into any more details, but Roger sold it for $40. A little bit later, Cancer sold it for $600, and then I bought it in an auction that Gary Terrell had over at the Armory for $145, and it finally got back where it belonged in our family, and it ain't going anywhere now. This is a red blanket chest. It sits in our family room. I just love the red paint that's on it. I love the form on the blanket chest. Bought it at a Robinson auction down at the current Robinson auction barn. In that same room is another one of them little stand tables, and on that stand table, I'm pretty sure I bought that table at a Robinson auction, but there's things on it. There's another one of them Copenhagen Crocs. That's not the one that there's a story about, but it's just like them. There's a little thing on there that's looks like an ashtray, but it isn't. It's got a golf club on it. My great-granddaughter, she saw that somewhere, and she said, that looks just like, I think at a yard sale, and she said, that looks just like Grandpa, and she got it and brought it out here and gave it to me, and I cherish that. I want the family to remember where that come from. Don't want to go them anywhere. Someday maybe she would want it back. In that ashtray, there's a couple pocket knives. One of them is a Barlow, or not a Barlow, a Case Double X. It belonged to Mike Bridwell. I bought it at a Bob Allen auction. I bought it because it belonged to my good friend, Mike Bridwell. His widow was having a sale after he died, and that knife was in the sale, and some other things that belonged to him, and I bought it for that reason. Right over in the corner in this room stands that's a cherry two-piece corner cupboard, and I bought that not too long ago, really, at a Robinson auction. And the next thing there is step back cupboard. In fact, that's the same cupboard that's behind me as I make this video. Bought that at a Robinson auction not too long ago. There's a Buick Riota Convertible. I bought that at a cancer auction on a Sunday afternoon, and that hot little blonde sitting in that thing, I got her a long time ago. I don't know when I first met her, 1962, 63. We got married in 1964. I'm still married to her. I plan on keeping her for a long time still. Right behind her is the Raised Church, and that's over in western Jackson County, just not too far across the Jackson County line. If you're going east on 50, you turn left on the road to Clear Springs, and that church is on that road. Raised Church. And I mentioned a lot of this Hard Times original furniture that I made were made from primitive church pews that were wrecked out of that church, raised church. I'm going to stop here for a minute because I've talked about a lot of different people in this series of videos and a lot of auctioneers. And I said, I don't know, maybe back in the first one I wasn't going to mention any names, but I couldn't help myself mention names all the way through it. And here's a guy right here who's a name I've already mentioned, talked about buying things at his auctions, but I need to stop and talk about him just for a minute, just to be fair.
55, 50, now 55. I got a $50 bid, now 55, 50, now 55. I got 50, how about 52 and a half? I got 50, now 52 and a half.
You know, this guy, young man, he started being an auctioneer when he was a young man. This picture right here, not too much of a flattering picture of him. He's goofing around, got sticking his tongue out. I don't know whether he's sticking his tongue out at me or he just sticking his tongue out. But that's Tony Kinser. And Tony Kinser, he could technically say he's the #1 auctioneer in Lawrence County because he lives in Lawrence County and the Robinsons don't. But I don't call it that way because I call it from where they do most of their business, and the Robinsons do so much business from Lawrence County folks that they got that #1. They got that #1 status, and Tony just going to have to settle for #2. He's a good auctioneer, and he's good folks. And his wife, she's good folks and from a good family. Both of them, they're just like the Robinsons are, and some others that I've mentioned. Come from good stock, good folks, good honest people. Nothing bad to say about, well, not too bad, about Tony and his auction company. And he's been relatively successful. He just never could break through to get past the Robinsons. They got started ahead of him. They got #1. #1, I've said that over and over again. It's hard to get out of. It's hard to take away from somebody once they get it. They got to do something pretty much bad themselves to let you do that. Tony, he fought the battle for a long time. But sorry, Tony, you never made it. But still, Tony Kinser, local auctioneer. I like Tony. You might notice in that picture, Tony, them jokers on either side of him. The one on the, as you're looking at, the one on the left side, if you go down to Robinson's auctions today, last Wednesday, next Wednesday, the Wednesday after that, 2 months ago Wednesday, you see that guy. He's there. He's one of their faithful attendees of their auctions. He goes there and he buys stuff, he bids on stuff. He's there every week. The guy on the other side of him, on the right side as you're looking at the picture, I think he's from Salem. And he goes to a lot of Robinson sales too. He likes to buy them antiques and resell them. He's a good buyer. He's not there every week like the other guy, but he's there a lot of the times. And when he's there, he's got a pocket full of money and he's there to spend it on something. So it takes people like that to keep an auctioneer in business and keep them going. And all I wanted to say about all of this is it takes the good customers to keep an auctioneer in business. And this shows you right here that I bought lots of stuff at auctions. Not just auctions, but lots of stuff at Robinson auctions. And one thing that I'd like to point out on everything you see there, when I bought that, I was willing to pay more for it than anybody else at the auction that day. And those days when I wasn't able to buy anything, me being there wanting to buy something caused somebody else to pay more for it than they would have. And so bidders are important to auctioneers. And it takes bidders to make an auctioneer successful. Over the years, there's been a lot of people who contributed to the success of the Robinson Auction Service that haven't been mentioned in this video. And I'm going to miss some and not mention some that I should, but I'm going to try to mention just a few because they contribute to, they and people like them are important to any auction company, the people that work for the auctioneer and the people that work in association with the auctioneer over the years. Right now, Stephen's got I don't know all his ring people, whatever you call them. I call them ring men, but they're setup men and takedown men, and they're there getting the sales ready. They're there cleaning up after the sales, and they're there during the sale.
Soda, $500 to goes on number. Is that 289?
Hold stuff up for you to buy. He's got one out there right now. His name's Dale. He's been with him for a good while. That man contributes to his success. Does a fine job. He's a good representative of their company, and he makes people feel good about being at the Robinson auction. Some of them other young guys, I don't know all their names, don't know them yet, but they're a bunch of good people. He's got a bunch of good people right now. And over the years, people that's had that same job, I'm going to mention 3 of them that were with Roger early on and with him for a long time. Carl and Bob and Bob. Carl and Big Bob, and I call him Big Bob, he probably weighed 150 pounds soaking wet, but he is bigger than the other Bob. The Brooking brothers, Carl Brooking, Bob Brooking, they worked for Roger and for the Robinson Auction Service in that capacity for a lot of years, and good people and good workers, and helped contribute to their success. And then the other Bob, Little Bob, I call him, he wasn't actually, he might have weighed more than Big Bob, but he was only about 5'5" or 5'6", little short guy. I think his name was Fugate, Bob Fugate, but whether that's right or not, I don't know, but splendid gentleman. Did a good job for them forever. Everybody liked him. He liked everybody else. And so those people, I want to mention them. And finally then, I think I need to mention the Concession People. And the first ones that I can remember, and she was with Roger for years and years too, was Patty Fletcher. And she liked to buy some of the same things I like to buy. Knew her husband, bird hunted on their property and some of their other family members' property. And Patty, she was Roger's concession lady for years and years and years. Did a bang-up job. As much a part of the Robinson Auction Service in the early days as anybody, and deserves being appreciated. The woman that followed her, and I can't even tell you what her name was, but it might not even been a woman, it might have been a group of women from a church or something, I don't know, but it was the same people. And this is what I'm going to give her. She just like Patty, had great food, was a great ambassador for anybody that she worked for. And the thing I liked about her the most, it didn't matter what time of year it was, one of the staples that she had on her table, along with the pies and the cakes and the donuts, she had persimmon pudding just about every time she was there, and I love persimmon pudding. Used to go by there on my noon hour on the Wednesday sales at the Armory, and just to get me a piece of persimmon pudding and some whipped cream, and every once in a while I bought some at one of them sales. But that lady, good people. And they've had some others since then. All, for my part, did a good job. And the people they got now, the people that cater their sales there at the barn, just wonderful people. They got good food, they got good prices, they got good people back there. You're just happy to have been where they are. You know, they make you feel like you're wanted and you're just part of the family. And those kind of people contribute to everybody's success, and just something to look at in any kind of business you're at. It's good to have people like them around you and representing you and helping you. Well, we've been all up and down the block talking about different auctioneers, different times, different eras, different stories. And about to wrap this up, and I realized that I hadn't mentioned somebody that for sure needed mentioned. In fact, I should have started with her. This whole thing, I'm going to end it with her. And so that's a good thing to end with. I think I did mention her in there somewhere, maybe not by name, but when I was talking about Roger's mother, I mentioned Roger's wife. And so I'm gonna wrap this up by saying Mary Lane, Roger's wife, and she was right there in the beginning. She was at most auctions, and I never saw her call a sell anything, but every other job that you can think of, I saw her do at one time or another. I've seen her load stuff, I've seen her unload stuff, I've seen her be the clerk, I've seen her be the cashier, I've seen her be a ring person. I've seen her at the bank with the proceeds from last week's auction. All that while she helped Roger. If anybody needs to appreciate it, it's her. And I can appreciate her because I've got one like her. I know how important they are. I've been married to the same woman for 57 years, and I don't know how long Roger and Mary Lane's been married, but probably about that same length of time. A long time, and it's a blessing to have a woman like that by your side. And she's a wonderful attribute in the beginning days of Robinson Auction Service. Now I still even see her once in a while. I've seen her in the new barn before, and I said hello to her. Don't see her as often as you used to, but I'm sure she's in the background encouraging and helping and doing things to help keep the business, the fine business that it is. Well, I said I was going to end this thing with Mary Lane, but as I sit here and talked about Mary Lane, I couldn't help but think of one other person that I neglected, and shame on me. Stephen's got himself a fine woman just like his mother. I mean, he learned from his dad there again, I guess, because Megan, she's right there beside Stephen in everything he's doing, right there behind him, sometimes out in front of him. She just, truth be known, she runs circles around him, and she carries a lot of the load at Robinson Auction Service nowadays. And all the things that I said about Mary Lane, except maybe seeing her at the bank, I don't remember seeing Megan at the bank, but all the other things I said about Mary Lane, that's Megan in spades. And she comes from fine folks too. I've known her parents for a long time, and they're good people, good, hard-working people. The what I think of as the core of the American people and everything that's good about them. That's Megan's parents. Her mom's been going to Robinson Auction since she was a young girl too. That's where I probably first met her. And I can't help but think that her mom's going to Robinson Auctions all the time. It's how Megan and Stephen met and got together. I don't know that to be true, but it sure does make sense. But Megan Robinson, another one of them women that everybody'd be good to have one like her. She's right there beside Stephen, and they got a little boy. His name's Asher, and he's full of beans. Full of energy, I should say. I know, like I said, I know both his grandparents. I think the Robinson Auction Service got a good future for a long time. I'm a hard times guy. Until the next time, you have a good day.